And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Saturday morning, IFR here, right along the Alaska Range up into the Tanana Valley eastward over toward the border. They're mostly along the Alaska Range in this area. Up to the north, IFR there along the Arctic coast and North Slope. More IFR here, Norton Sound into the Bering Strait, and a band here along the southwest coast, extending down to the Alaska Peninsula. And then some improvement out to the west, but a lot of marginal VFR here for the western Aleutians. And the southeast coast starts out with some IFR over the inside waters. And then for the afternoon, that becomes VFR there for the inside waters of the Panhandle. VFR right up into the Copper River Basin. IFR here, Talkeetna Mountains, up in toward the Alaska Range there, kind of pushing southward in toward the, across the Matanuska Valley, or into the Matanuska Valley, at least marginal VFR there, and VFR holding for Prince William Sound, VFR Kodiak Island, improvement up there on the Arctic coast, just some marginal VFR left over, and a band of IFR here along the southwest coast up to just north of St. Lawrence Island, and then some IFR showing up there, that intense storm pushing in toward the western Aleutians. And for Sunday morning, front associated with that pushes a band here eastward across Adak and Atka and northward, extending back in toward Chimney-Attu. And then a break ahead of that, and then this area of IFR pushing inland across the Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta back to St. Lawrence Island. Good VFR for much of the interior, Arctic coast, marginal VFR at times in areas up there. And IFR here for the eastern Copper River Basin down to the North Gulf Coast there, and still up across the eastern Alaska Range area in Abesna, Northway, possibly Tok, and some IFR for the southern Panhandle. For the afternoon, good VFR here in the interior, marginal conditions still holding over the central and western Arctic coast, and some marginal VFR here for the North Gulf Coast into the southeastern Copper River Basin and portions of the Kenai Peninsula, Kodiak Island, out across the southwest interior here to Nunivak Island, and that extends also into the Lynn Canal Glacier Bay area. Then this intense storm, the low center holding back toward Chimney-Attu over the western Aleutians, but the front here, and some IFR, pushing IFR up toward the Pribilofs, extending back down across the eastern Aleutians. And for passes, Anahtuvik and Anigan tomorrow, pretty good. VFR for both passes in the forecast. Same thing for Lake Clark and Merrill, VFR, rainy VFR. Marginal VFR there for windy, with probably looking at some IFR on the northern entrance there. Isabel going for IFR flying there tomorrow, as well as IFR from Antasta on Saturday. Tanita, marginal VFR, possible IFR. And Portage, though, staying VFR optimistically through the entire day. And Chilkoot and White will be VFR for the day Saturday. Freezing levels at the surface here, pushing south and east to Kodiak Island, up along and just off the North Gulf Coast, down across the Panhandle. 2,000 feet here over the Alaska Peninsula, and that's about it. We've got the surface now a little bit farther south than today, near closer to St. Matthew Island. And from there, looking at some, the icing chart here, a couple areas with that moisture coming southward, and here with that Arctic boundary and the upper level low pulling westward now across the central interior. We've got some possibilities of isolated moderate rime icing here, Susitna Valley across the Copper River Basin, the Alaska Range there. And again, that kind of improving from north to south. And for the southwest coast here, mostly looks like around Cape Newinam to Togiak, possible icing there down across the eastern Alaska Peninsula. And then some icing pushing in, the lighter icing in toward Chimney-Attu, the heavier icing here to the southwest. But that'll all be pushing northeastward and eastward during the nighttime hours Saturday and into Sunday. And for the jet stream here, looking at northwest winds, pretty strong here, cutting across the central Aleutians up to 125 to 35 knots there. Otherwise, south to north flow out here over the eastern Bering Sea, or at about 65 knots, then back around coming over the top of this ridge, northwest winds roughly at about 65 knots there, Prince William Sound, and then some stronger winds, but not too bad up over the northeast interior. Pretty light, though, for the southeast coast. That light wind condition extends down to 9,000 feet here, not only for the Panhandle, but across the Gulf of Alaska and much of southern Alaska. And up to the north here with this upper low tracking westward now, coming out of Canada. Got some pretty good easterly winds, 40 to 50 knots here over the northern half of the state. Light over the central and eastern Bering Sea. And then you can see with this big storm out here, winds up to 85, 105 knots there. That's still south of the Aleutians, but again, that'll be shifting north and east tomorrow night and on Sunday. And at 3,000 feet, we've got east-southeast winds, 45 to 60 knots right through this area in toward the central interior areas, and 70 knots out of the southeast, pushing up toward the western Aleutians. Otherwise pretty light for the Bering Sea and across southern Alaska, as well as the southeast coast. So turbulence-wise, pretty smooth conditions over a good deal of the forecast area here, but look for some considerable moderate turbulence from the Kobuk Valley up across Seward Peninsula, Selawik, Kotzebue, and along the northwest coast up toward Cape Lisburne. And with that storm and increasing winds out to the west here, considerable moderate turbulence developing for the western Aleutians.